Okay, thank you so much and welcome to this, to the State of the Nation this Tuesday, the 31st October 2023, the last State of the Nation of the month, and it is a big State of the Nation actually, the visit of the British monarch, that is King Charles III and Queen Camilla to the country. It is very symbolic. This visit is coming at a time when Kenya is just expecting to celebrate 60 years since we gained independence from the same Britain. That will be happening in December. Just a few moments ago, there has been a state dinner in State House in honor of the visiting royals, and the issue of the sad and painful colonial past was touched, but the king fell short of asking for the apology that the human rights groups were actually asking for. We are going to look into that with my guest who is already in studio. He is Dr. Evans Onyango. He is a lecturer and a researcher focusing on matters to do with international relations. Dr. Good evening and welcome to KUTV.
Good evening and thank you for hosting me.
Okay, so first of all, why now? Why is the king visiting Kenya at this particular time?
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Mondi. And the King's visit is just a continuation of visits by European leaders and other emerging nations to Africa.
Yes.
Africa has been a battle of renewed interest on Russians and Americans and Chinese up to secure some interests. Mm-hmm. And therefore, the royalty coming here is it can be viewed as one to seek to cement their past or traditional diplomatic ties, and of late with our new regime, our president is very vocal in issues Africa, and therefore the visit that makes the king comes this way is also to assure that cooperation between Britain and Kenya will continue, considering what is happening in West Africa, whereby the former colonial master France, there is really apathy. Mm-hmm. So as the head of the Commonwealth, the king also comes to advance their soft power and try to consolidate the Commonwealth community. Mm-hmm. So that one, coupled with, of course, a traditional vested interest of Britain, that is what makes his visit very important at this particular time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so when you look at that and you talk about what is happening with France in the West, the coups and people just turning against France, I want us to take a look, just go down the memory lane. Do you have any significant periods or events that really stand out for you in the history of Kenya, the relationship between Kenya and our former colonial master, that is the British, since 1963 when we gained our independence?
The relation between Kenya since 1963 can be considered as a mixed one. Depending on who is sitting in State House. Mm-hmm. Traditionally, during the Moi era, the first president Kenyatta's era, we were very loyal to Western nations, and Britain as our colonial master. I think we were so intertwined in terms of their economy and ours. And the only shift that comes is when Kibaki comes in and he tries to look at East. Of course, that brings a lot of tension, but traditionally, generally, we have been pro-West and pro-British for a very long time. Mm-hmm. Emerging diplomatic perspective, in terms of our economic interests, that is where we have now diverted. Issues of infrastructure, we tend to look at the East, but traditional issues of agriculture, security, We are still in the West and more so in Britain.
Yeah. And these two leaders, definitely President William Ruto and the King, are going to have a session just to talk between themselves. And when you say there are things that we look to the West and then there are things that we look east, for example, China and all that. When you look at the King, he's very much pro-organic farming, for instance. And then President Ruto, as a scientist, he says that we can do GMO farming, for instance, and the cabinet approved GMO seeds just the other day. When these two, they have interests that don't merge, they divert at some point. How do they handle such in international relations now?
I think when two leaders or heads of state, as it were, meet, everybody seeks to get a competitive edge over the others. So I'm sure that our president will probably try to seek for a competitive edge in terms of selling our agricultural products to Britain without really bringing forth the issue of GMOs, because he knows that the King is we can say anti-GMO, but we can always sell the other part of our agricultural potential. So that is what will be, I'm sure he'll be dwelling on in terms of opening the markets to our agricultural products.
Okay. When you look at Kenya, this is the place where Queen Elizabeth came to know that she had actually become king. She was somewhere at treetops in Nyeri, I think, and King George died, and she became queen immediately.
Yes.
This is a country that holds a special place in the royal family.
Yes.
Do you think that could have contributed to their choice of Kenya as the first Commonwealth country to travel to after their coronation in June this year?
Yes, thank you very much. Several factors could have contributed to the choice of Kenya. Definitely that is one of them, and the royal family also minds about history and legacy. And therefore, beyond just coming into Kenya because of past history of the mother,
yes,
having become the king when he's in Kenya, there are also other strategic interests. You look at Africa now, Kenya is a big player. And Kenya is also a big player to the Commonwealth. And therefore, taking Kenya on its side is simply carrying along other Commonwealth members such that it can negotiate with Kenya can be used to influence other key countries that are members of the Commonwealth. I am sure other members of the Commonwealth are watching, Nigeria, Zambia. They are watching really keenly what Kenya becomes of, or what Kenya will gain after this visit. And for us as Kenya, I think this is the time we should really put our foot forward to explore and gain diplomatically. We know very well that the king is the head of state, and therefore he does not enjoy executive powers. So he cannot really give us the real tangible things as compared to when the prime minister would have been here. But we can use the visit to open avenues, open talks that can later on be followed up to get tangible things. For example, the president is passionate on issues of diaspora and youth employment. This is an avenue to start those conversations.
Yes.
To open up the markets for Kenyans in terms of labor force to UK, now that UK is not part of EU, it is easy to negotiate with. Also, I saw the king visiting Uhuru Gardens. Probably somebody that was reading the body language would easily know that that was a very quiet way of saying sorry to the Kenyan population without voicing it. By recognizing that, yes, this place is where you got your independence, and we know the process of getting independence was painful. So I'm sure in their closed sessions, this is an avenue that our president or other technologists can explore and say that now you know where we were. This is the experience we had.
And just on that one, just moments ago before I came on air here, we had the president speaking, addressing the issues of colonial past, the struggle for independence. I heard the king himself talk about it. He actually mentioned it and said how he regretted the role of his country in what we had to pass through as Kenyans. But he fell short of giving that apology, which the human rights groups had actually said they want it said. But why is it so difficult? I mean, even the Queen herself did not do it. Why is it so difficult to get this apology from the British monarch?
Basically, this boils down to state interest. Usually, when you commit a crime, it would be very hard for you to say, I commit a crime. That's why people go to court of law. And you've seen other people, Kenyans have gone to court of law in Britain and gotten justice. The king just coming outrightly to say that we are sorry probably would open a Pandora's box. The Kenyan state is the one that could now come and say, now that your royalty, you've acknowledged that these were evils that were done to Kenyans, probably we could open a discussion on how best to settle this issue, probably through a compensation, through a fund, or through whatever agreement. It should come from the Kenyan state pushing the royalty towards a settlement, not us expecting the royalty to come and say, now we are sorry. It would be a bit awkward for him. Yes.
Of which that one would put some strain on the relationship between Kenya and the UK.
Yes.
Okay. And so when you look at that, just still on the point of the king coming and this being a soft diplomacy, there have been talks of this being a people-to-people kind of a visit and not a government to government. First of all, I'd like you to explain that people-to-people versus government-to-government, and then how different this would be if we had Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, for instance, in Kenya. What would be different from having King Charles in Kenya?
Okay. The difference that is very striking is that the king comes to Kenya as a monarch without executive powers. Executive powers is the powers of the government because he's just a head of state, a symbol of national unity. So he comes to Kenya through soft diplomacy. He is wearing two hats, of course, as the head of the Commonwealth and as the head of the state of Britain. Now, head of state is very ceremonial in a parliamentary democracy. As opposed to our state, Kenya, our president is both the head of state and head of government. He enjoys both powers as the head of state and as the head of government. And therefore, he can make huge bilateral agreements. The king is a bit restricted on what he can do. And that's why I am saying that whatever we can gain out of this is opening avenues for continued talk. So that if you open avenues for talks with him, then we can later on come and engage the prime minister based on the goodwill that the royalty gave us when he came here. So real issues, real agreements, it's when the prime minister who enjoys executive powers, of course, meet with the president, us who enjoys both head of state and as head of government powers.
Okay.